Welcome. Glad to see you guys. Well, I can't really see you, but I'm glad that you're here anyway. Okay, tonight we're going to have some fun and we're going to be talking about appraisal issues. We're going to go over a number of questions like we always do. And we are also going to add in a little bit on assessment and taxation in Utah as well. But before we get started, I want to share a couple of things with you. Our producer and host for this evening, of course, is Dan Naylor, as usual, owner of the school. And recently, Dan received a very special award from from a national organization that it works with instructors and schools, primarily schools, and he won one of the 100 innovators in education, and it's a real special thing. So round of applause for Dan in the school. I mean, it's nice when other organizations will look out and see what's happening in education and single you out as an innovator, and you get recognized for what you've actually been doing. So Dan, my hats off to you, and is very well earned. Also, Rick Roller Real Estate is a YouTube channel. Rick Roller Real Estate is a YouTube channel. It's kind of a private-ish channel, but you can find it by going in to YouTube and then hitting a little thing for search and put in Rick Roller Real Estate, and you'll find my channel. On there is a very lengthy discussion on appraisal that if you want to take a look at that, my daughter recently passed the exam and told me that particular discussion was very helpful for her. So if you want to, dig a little deeper into appraisal, I would suggest that to you. There's no cost for that, of course. So let's just get right into the questions, and we're going to be talking about number one. Here we go. Okay, number one says, which of the following is not one of the essential elements of value? Not one of the essential elements of value. Scarcity, demand, transferability, or highest and best use. Now, the four essential elements of value can be remembered with the acronym DUST, D-U-S-T. Yeah. Well, demand, okay.
You can't hear us, so unless I turn my mic on.
Oh, I can't. Can you? Am I coming through? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. DUST, D-U-S-T, demand, utility, scarcity, and transferability. Now, if you look at A, B, and C, hey, those are three of the four: demand, scarcity, transferability. So obviously, the one that is not essential element is highest and best use. Okay, so the answer to that one is D. Highest and best use is that use which will return the greatest amount of money return to the owners. And sometimes it's violated, because it's an older house in a commercial area, and this is the one last holdout. Everybody else, they've torn down their houses and put in little retail spaces or a shopping center or something like that. And so you look at that and say, well, wait a minute, is that property being used for its highest and best use? Probably not. Would probably be return more money, but a lot of folks that have been there for a long time say, well, I've been living here forever and I want to just check out from here, so I'm not selling. So occasionally it is what we call a concept that we use in appraisal, highest and best use, but it's not one of the essential elements. The essential elements are DUST, D-U-S-T, demand, utility, right? Scarcity, and transferability. Okay. Next question, number two. When taking a listing, an agent, J, had sellers who insisted that their home was worth more than the one down the street for sale, even though both homes are basically the same. You'll find sellers like this. I explained that buyers won't pay any more than they have to in order to get what they desire or the utility that they need. And this is a principle of what? Progression, substitution, contribution, or balance. It's a principle of substitution, always on the exam. Buyers will substitute the utility of one property for another. It's comparison shopping. They won't pay any more than they have to get the utility they need. I need a 4-bedroom. I need 2, maybe 2.5 baths. I need a 2-car garage. I want it in this area. And they go out and they look at several of them and they say, I'm making an offer on this one because I like the colors, or I like the fact that it's closer to the park, or whatever it is. But they're substituting utility of one for another, and they're not going to pay more for your house just because you think it's more special. Progression is a concept also in appraisal where, if you add value to the house or utility to a house, it goes up in value. And contribution, we see this all the time, mainly in a negative form, but everything you put into your house needs to contribute the cost that it back to you when you sell it. If you do that, then you're always in sync with the principle of contribution. Well, when I remodeled my home, I wanted a really nice shower. So we built a big one, and it has a rain thing, and it has a waterfall in it, and it has a steam unit in it. And, I mean, but you have has a toe tester, so you can, just wait till the water is hot enough, then turn on a shower, so it has all these things. We probably put several $1,000s into that shower. Am I going to get it back? Oh, heck no. I violated the principle of contribution. Have you enjoyed it? Yeah, it's great. Okay, but that's what the principle of and the principle of balance is. We have to have a reasonable amount of balance in the economy in an area to make things, you can overbuild or you can underbuild. But, if we have an equal amount of demand, an equal amount of utility that, with your property, right now, things are way out of balance. And what are we missing? We're missing inventory. We have real high demand, but no inventory. So, prices have been skyrocketing. I mean, really skyrocketing. Okay. All right. Let's go to number 3, please. Okay. Principal substitution. The Y company needed a large parcel of land to relocate their business. They found 2 parcels next to each other priced at 80 and another one at 95, and they bought them both. Subsequently, they found a better site, and they sold those 2 parcels they had already purchased because they found a better site, but they sold it to one buyer, and they sold it to him for $205,000. This illustrates the concept of neighborhood cycle, assemblage, substitution, or situs. This is an assemblage, okay? Now, you'll notice that these, I mean, when was the last time you used any of these words? I mean, one of the reasons why people struggle with the exam is they don't know the vocabulary. And, I've told you I have a Quizlet program you're welcome to have, and you can find that on my website, rickroller.com. But the Quizlet program goes through the inventory. There's a little under 400 words in there that I know that you have to know in order to pass the exam. How do you know? I've taken the exam a ton of times, written the exam as well. So assemblage is where you take 2 parcels and you put them together. And these 2 parcels, one he paid 80, one he paid 95 for. So he's in them about 175. And but he sold it for 205. That's cool. So if you put parcels together and now they're bigger and they have more utility to certain buyers, therefore they're worth more money, that's called an assemblage. Okay, because he put them together and they work. And now the process of doing this is called plottage. But if he'd paid more than 205, what he sold it for, like he paid 105 for one and 110 for the other, he actually lost money. It's still a plottage. You still put it together, but it's not an assemblage. In order to be assemblage, you have to make a profit. A situs is location preference. North side's better than south side. East side's better than west side. This side of the tracks is better than that side of the tracks. People have attitudes about areas, and that is encompassed in the word situs. It's location preference. The subdivision is taking a large parcel and chopping up, making different lots. A neighborhood cycle is neighborhoods go through there was nothing there, and then he started building things. So that was, prices were improving, they started going up, and then it hits kind of a balance there where it's not really going up, it's not really going down, and it's kind of equilibrium, and then it goes into a disintegration. So the integration, kind of equalization and then disintegration. And neighborhoods do this. I mean, and a lot of times there's a change in use. Like I mentioned, that old house that went, that whole area went commercial. But that's just a neighborhood cycle, and you can kind of tell where they're at based on sales and prices are still going up or not. Several other factors, like has there been a change in zoning and whatnot. Next question, please. Which of the following is not an approach to appraisal? Cost income comparison or plottage? I already defined plottage, so I kind of gave this one away. That is not an approach to value. Okay. There's three approaches to value: cost, income, and comparison. And those are the ones that we use. And each one of them lends itself, better to one's status or one type of property than another. Income approach, if it's an income producing piece of real estate, like an apartment building or an office building, medical building, that kind of thing, the income approach is probably best, because the more income approach it produces, the more money it's worth. One of my investors owned a bar in California on the beach. And California has some really funky laws, especially in coastal type properties, where you couldn't build anymore, but you could remodel. So they tore everything down except for just a real small part of that building. And of course, this is a remodel, because they left the foundation and whatnot, and they really built it back up. But man, that property was worth a fortune, not because of the materials that went into it, location, whatnot. It was the cash flow out of that sucker. It was the only bar within walking distance for a long, long ways. A very popular bar, and made a ton of money out of that property, especially when he remodeled it to make even more money. A lot of other funny things about that. Next, comparison. That's sometimes called the market data approach. It's the same thing, but you're comparing this property to that property. This property is our subject property. We don't know what it's worth. So we go out and find a bunch of these. These have sold, this sold, this sold, that sold. And they're like this property, but we have to make some adjustments. If this property was better, we'd have to make a negative adjustment. Sold for 400 grand, but it's better than this one. It had a 3-car garage. This is only a 2. So mathematically, we'll take a little bit away from that sales price to make it look more like the subject property. You always adjust the comparables. You never adjust the subject properties. Okay. But that's very best property for that, because there's easy to find and lots of comps, are houses. Okay. The cost approach lends itself to particular type properties. A lot of them, we call them service properties, like a church or a school. I mean, how many church sales can you find? Probably not too many. How many school sales can you find? Or if it's a very unique kind of building, we might say, well, what would it cost to replicate that? So we got the land value, plus the cost to, replacement cost new minus depreciation and that would give us our indication of value. So be real familiar with those, and when I get in depth on that in that video training on Rick Roller Real Estate on YouTube. Next question, please. Okay, a seller asks a sales agent why the purchase price of his home is $165 and the appraised value was only $160. Now, particularly in a market like we're in right now, people need to understand that appraisals are not scientific; they're artistic. Some cases they're autistic. but anyway, my point is, a lot of buyers and sellers don't understand. Well, it appraised for 160. That's got to be what it's worth. But right now, people are paying 30, 40, 50, 100 grand over the appraised value just to get the house. So if you were working with an executive relocation firm, and you were such an important cog in that corporation's wheels, but they needed you to go to Denver to take over the Denver, property or whatever it was they were, you were doing with them, the manufacturing facility, whatever it was. But to compel you to go take that job, besides the raise and the better money and the better position, they're going to help you with relocating. And in other words, they're going to pay for the move, and they're going to guarantee that your house sells. And if it doesn't sell for what we get it appraised for, then the company's going to take the hit, not you. And that's part of a perk, a benefit to go there. Well, how many appraisals do they order? They usually order 3. and they throw out the high, they throw out the low, and they take the one in the middle, which I'm not going to illustrate with the hand. But anyway, they take the one in the middle because they know appraisals are artistic. They're not scientific. So they throw the high out, throw the low out, take the one in the middle. And that's what the company guarantees that they'll buy it for. And then they have a relocation company come in, whose business it is to get the house spruced up, whatever they needed to do, and then put it on the market and get it sold. And then after all the sales costs and whatnot, the company guaranteed you this much money. And anyway, it's a nice perk for execs to get them to move. The agent explains that though the seller was paying the appraiser, the seller paid. So most of the time, appraisals are paid for by the buyer, but a lot of times it could be paid for by a seller. It's negotiable. He actually works for the buyer. And so he determines with an average buyer, what would an average buyer pay for that property? However, the house had certain features that made it worth more to this particular buyer, like it was a house. And they could actually get it, and are willing to pay more than the appraised value. The agent explained the concept of fair market value. Fair market value is what a reasonable seller who's informed and a reasonable buyer who's informed, having looked at a sufficient number of homes, so their intelligence involved there. They've looked at other houses. They just didn't look at one. And the house has been on the market for a reasonable period of time. What would they pay? Law of diminishing returns. Well, that's kind of like that principle of contribution. You put $1,000 in, but you did it. You did it right. You put it in paint. You always make your money back on paint. Fresh paint is really great. It costs you $1,000 for the materials and the help to get it painted, but you'll probably make $2,000 or $3,000 back. But then other things, you put the money in and we broke even, or you put money in, you lost money. That's the law of diminishing return. Law of exchange. Things right now, we see this. Demand is so high for homes, and the market inventory is so low that people are paying more than what they're worth. It's hard to figure out what things are worth right now. And the law of good consideration. There is no such thing, but good consideration is love and affection, loyalty, that type of thing. Valuable consideration is money. So all right, next question, please. A house was appraised using replacement method for $85,000. That's kind of the the cost method, right? The comparison method for 75. They found comps, adjusted the comps. Okay, and a house was sold under a bankruptcy for $70,000, which is most likely the actual fair market value of the house. Well, guys, the $70,000 figure, because there's a bankruptcy involved, makes it a distress sale. Appraisers don't like to use distress sales because part of the definition of fair market value, the last part of it, is that there's no undue duress on either party. Well, if you're in bankruptcy, you don't have any control. I mean, it's the trustee that's going to decide, and he's got all the vendors that are upset and want their money right now. And so he might take a lower offer because the word's out that you're in bankruptcy. I mean, it's in the public record, and savvy buyers might investigate all that and find that out and make you a lowball or a lower offer. So that one we're going to throw out because it's because of the duress involved. But so somewhere between if it is a house 75, we'd lean more on that one. And to rebuild the house, well, this is a slower market. Sometimes what it costs to build, if there's a if you're in a recession, if with the major employers in an area have shut down and no one can get jobs, you're not going to get what it would cost to rebuild that. So, somewhere between 75 and 85. So, the correct answer would be 80. 70 won't work. 65 is out of the picture. If 70 is not good, what's 65? So now you got a 50-50 chance. Nothing was as high as 95. So your best guess on that one would be $80,000. Now you're looking at that and there's a lot of numbers in it, and some people would call that a math question. It's not really a math question. It's a concept question, isn't it? So even though there's numbers in the problem and maybe you're a math phobic, don't freak out. It may not even be a math question. Next question, please. What method of appraising would most affect when appraising a vacant parcel of land. Now, if you look these over, the cost approach, where we take, remember, the value of the land, replacement cost new minus depreciation equals the value. There's no replacement cost new here because it's a vacant piece of property. So cost approach, depreciated, cost approach, replacement, throw both those out. Income approach, vacant land normally doesn't have much of an income. There are, a few exceptions, if it's a parking lot type thing, or, close to a venue where they have spillover parking, and you can stand out there all night, get $5 a car or whatever. But still, that doesn't happen that much. So the best for a vacant land would be to find out what other pieces of vacant land or other lots is sold for. And that would say, well, these other lots are selling all around it, or this, if it's a larger parcel, it's the same thing. So the correct answer to this one is A, of course. Next one, please. When the government needs to determine how much a particular property should pay in property taxes, they perform what? Zoning ordinance? No. Condemnation. Condemnation is the process of enforcing the government right of eminent domain. The government has the right to come in and take your property, for widening a street or whatever use they feel would be in the public interest, but they have to pay you fair compensation for that, fair value. And the process of figuring all this out, of going through that, is condemnation. Evaluation, sounds good, but it's just a throwaway answer. The correct answer is when the government comes out and looks at you. They have a special department for this. It's called the county assessor's office, and they come out and do an assessment. It's a lot like an appraisal, really. They're looking for comparables and what it might be worth, but they're not held to some of the same standards that an appraiser is. The appraiser has a whole set of standards, that they have to abide by. They're somewhat regulated. They are, and there is an appeal process if you think you've got overassessed. But the correct answer to this one, when the government was the key on this, they send out an assessor, not an appraiser. Well, they are kind of like an appraiser, but they're called an assessor. Okay, next question, please. A homeowner felt that a tax assessment was unfair. Hey, well, you way overassessed me. Why is that important? Because there's going to be a mill levy against that assessment, and that's what your taxes are going to. So the higher the assessment, the higher the taxes you're going to pay. And like I said, there is an appeal process. You have to go in once a year. It's normally in, midsummer, about this time, when people want to go on vacation. They're not foolish. But anyway, that's the only time you can do it. You got to make an appointment with them, go in. And what you need to take with you are comparable sales, proving that the assessor was out to lunch and that they overassessed you. But there's other things that could have gone wrong. I mean, over the years, I've done over about 600 of these appeals. Obviously it wouldn't be a time like now, where the market's gone up so much, everything's underassessed. It'd be a time after now, when the market, stabilizes or comes back. The market goes up, it goes down, about 8-year cycles. Only we're about 10 years into this one. So at some point, the bubble's going to kind of go down a little bit, and we're going to have people that were assessed up here when they bought it, and it might be an opportunity. I did it. We didn't charge much. I worked with an appraiser, and it took a long time, at the assessment, their appeals department. We took actually 2 weeks the first year that we did it of their time, all day. It was just us, doing all these appeals. We only charged $50. I gave that money to the appraiser. I didn't care about the money. What I cared about was meeting lots of homeowners and becoming their guy. I wanted to be their realtor guy. When they thought of real estate, I wanted them to think of me. And it paid off. I didn't make anything on the 2 weeks I spent in there, but boy, over the next year or two, when some of those people wanted to sell, I was their guy. Of course, I kept in touch with them too. Okay, enough on practicality there. Although I do want to talk about practicality a little bit. I brought some money with me tonight. So anyway, what should they do? Well, just like I told you, they need to do A. They need to find similar properties that are theirs that were assessed at a lower value. And sometimes they miscategorize properties. And we found several issues where they said the house was a 2-story and it was a bi-level. I mean, they have different price per square foot values and things. But the appraiser helped me work through all those. And anyway, we lost most of them by the way. But we won a few, but that second year we won every one. They didn't want us taking 2 weeks again. Okay, anyway, neighboring properties larger? No, they need to be similar. Previous assessment was lower. Okay, well, hey, my house used to be lower, so what? Now it's worth more. We're going to see a lot of this. There's going to be a need for this. They've been assigned a tax penalty. Well, they should have paid their taxes. You can't help the tax penalty. Okay. Dumb. Okay, next one, please. Okay, let's talk about taxes from a little different perspective right now. A tax is charged to a specific group of properties for a public project, usually because there will be, the people are being taxed will benefit from that project, is known as a transfer tax, ad valorem, tax penalty, or special assessment. Transfer taxes are not, there's no statewide transfer tax here. There's some big ones in California. There's kind of a transfer tax in HOAs. If your house is in an HOA, they charge a kind of an application fee or associating fee, and then they charge some other money, so, and they're going to, that's usually paid for by the seller, sometimes by the buyer, sometimes it's split, it's in the contract, you negotiate it. But those can become kind of expensive. So far, our lobbyist group here in Utah, that's associated with the National Association of Realtors, the Utah Association portion of the National Association of Realtors. We have a phenomenal lobbyist group, and over the years we've raised over $1 million in our fund that we could defend what we want in the legislature. So it's always been a situation where some law comes along and someone's pushing it forward because they think we need to have a transfer tax and all these rich people that have houses, and we can use the money for the schools. There's always a great purpose for the money. Of course there is. There's lots of great purposes out there, but we need to tax these real estate transactions. We could look how much money we could raise. It might be fantastic. Okay. Well, up at the legislative, executive branch up there on the hill in down Salt Lake, the word is that if the LDS church doesn't want it, or if the realtors don't want it, it's not happening in Utah. Well, that's good, because we're right up there next to God. I mean, our lobbying group is so good that, and we have a lot of things that come up. Every few years. It's just ridiculous. The cities will get some legislator to say, okay, I'll sponsor that bill. And what they want is they want home rule. They want, if you have a listing in West Jordan and you have another listing in Riverton and you have a listing in South Jordan and another one in Draper, they want you to get a city license for every one of those properties to sell that property. Well, that's nuts. We have a state license. You have a real estate license by the state of Utah that allows you to sell any property in the state of Utah. And yeah, there's some rules you have to comply with, they push through some landlording licensing and things like that, but for your investor buyers. But this home rule and having a real estate office have 16 city licenses on the wall, that's just a short little example of something that they've never been able to get through because we're going to fight it. I pity the poor legislator that that wanted to sponsor that bill, because next year we're going to contribute a lot of money to his competitor. That's dirty politics, but politics are kind of dirty to begin with. Next question, please. The equitable right of redemption. Oh, didn't I back up, Dan? Because I didn't explain ad valorem. Ad valorem is a Latin term which means according to value. And that's what property taxes are. They're supposed to be ad valorem, according to the value. That's why you can go in and debate. Well, no, that's not the value of my property. You know, my value is less than that because I want to pay less taxes. And other things. Maybe they miscategorized you. Maybe you bought a house in Park City that previously had been used for years as an Airbnb. Well, and now you bought it, and so they assumed you're going to use it for an Airbnb, but you didn't. You moved into it. Now, why is that important? Well, if it's a residential property and it is your domicile, you know, in other words, you're not renting it nightly, you know, for like an Airbnb or for a week or a weekend or whatever it is, you know, that looks a lot like a motel disguised as a house. Well, they don't give you the residential abatement. In other words, legislators are smart. They know that, you know, voters live in houses, and, you know, and if you can only push so much tax. And so they have the value, the assessed value, but then they give you a break. And the break might be 20% off, 30% off, whatever the assessment is. So if they want to raise taxes and they haven't gone through and reassessed everything, one way they can do that is lower the residential exemption. The problem you had is you got this whopping tax notices, and then you noticed on there you're miscategorized. You know, hopefully you do. I mean, if you have a good realtor that they could call, let's call our real estate guy. How come our taxes are so high? Well, can you send me a copy of it? You know, let me look at it. They take a picture, you know, they email it over or text it over. You take a good look at it. Oh, well, heck, they've got you miscategorized. They're categorizing you as a, you know, you don't get the residential exemption because they think you're still an Airbnb. Let's you and I go in and challenge that. We can only challenge it about this time, you know, because you know all the rules. I'll get the paperwork. I'll get it all filled out for you. Now, why are you doing all this? You're going to get paid for it? You're not going to charge them a measly $50. You're going to do it because you're their guy or gal. You're their realtor. You're their, when you think of real estate, you want to think of it. You know, you'll get calls. Hey, Rick, is it a good time to refinance? Well, you know, reacquaint me. What is your interest rate right now? What are you doing? When, you know, how long are you going to live there still? Or you think you might be, you know, all these different questions, you know, are like a doctor. You know, let me check your pulse, you know, and let me hit your reflexes. Let me do this. Let me, you know, forget the, you know, the glove thing, guys. But anyway, all that. And then what happens is you come out and you say, you know, okay, I'm going to go ahead and file this for you. And then we'll go in and we'll talk to them and we'll prove that you're living there and whatnot. And they'll back off. You know, they'll give you the residential exemption. Is that performing a valuable service for someone? Go like this. Yes. Why do you want to do this? You want repeat business. Okay. So that's ad valorem. In this case, it, you know, it was, you know, assessed correctly, perhaps, but they didn't give you that residential abatement. Tax penalty, you know, if you don't pay your taxes, there's a penalty. Yeah, it's not a lot, but it is. Okay. And a special assessment, that was like that area. Well, that's the answer. This question. Special assessments where, you know, you didn't have sidewalk, curb and gutter, and street lights. You know, there's parts of Old Sandy that were like that for years. And the city says, hey, we're a classy place now. We want to put in sidewalks, curb and gutter, and street lights. Well, they didn't tax the whole city properties in Sandy, just those that were improved with a special assessment, and they did it fairly, unless you're living on a corner, because, well, you know, we put in 100 feet of sidewalk and curb and gutter, and you benefit by a street light down the road. So, you know, here's what you need to pay. And the rules are, it should, what the amount they want you to pay, you know, please send us a check. That'll be, you know, $2,300. Or you could pay it over a number of years. They'll let you just add it to your property tax and pay it over a number of years. But that amount, that $2,300, if you could show that it did not increase the value of your property that much, which is a very hard thing to do, you'd have to get some expert witnesses and go in and challenge it. Most people don't do it. It's just not worth it. Then you know, they can't charge you more than what your property actually went up in value for that. But that's what it is, you know. Now, that guy that lives on the corner, he didn't do 100 feet. He had to do 100 feet, and then it went around. He had to pay for the side yard too. Oh, well. But it's nice living on a corner. You have less neighbors. Okay, that's kind of how that works too. Anybody have any questions about anything we talked about tonight? Now's your chance to ask, or about any topic. Questions? appreciate you. We appreciate your being in our school. And when you get out there and other people are and you've done well, and all your other relatives come to you and say, hey, I want to get one of them licenses. Don't forget to give Dan a call and come to our school. Thanks for being here tonight, folks. Take me up on that offer. There's a limited expiration time on it. Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
You bet. Thank you, Dan.
And congratulations, Dan.
Oh, thank you. It was an honor. Thanks everyone for being here. Thank you, Rick, a lot for your expertise and for running through some of this review with us. We really appreciate that. It is excellent sometimes to be able to come and hear right from the horse's mouth. And don't mind if I call you that, do you, Rick? All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back here in 2 weeks.
Thank you.